Today on Let's Read, we're going to check out the bi-monthly issue of Sega Visions from May and June 1992. Okay, here we have the cover of the May and June bi-monthly issue of Sega Visions from 1992. In the upper left-hand corner here it says, Sega Visions for the video game players. Our cover features Kid Chameleon. And we have, up here we have some features that are highlighted. Inside info on the Sega CD. Designer interview, the creators of Toe Jam and Earl. More reviews than ever. Introducing game ratings. Behind the scenes at Sega. Hints and maps for the latest games. $3.50. Okay, we have software publisher Flying Edge has a big 2-page spread with Genesis and Game Gear titles. Have our table of contents here. The first feature is Kid Chameleon, hints, tips, and maps. You haven't seen this much Sega game info before now. There's a Sonic the Hedgehog comic. A visit to Sega, a day in the life of a video game. Behind closed doors, around corners, and into the inner sanctums of Sega, tracking the genesis of a game. Then we're going to be looking at Sega CD, Powerhouse Gaming. An interview with the creators of Toe Jam and Earl. Game reviews of Sonic the Hedgehog, Alicia Dragoon, Sports Talk Baseball, Quack Shot starring Donald Duck, Shuck Rock, Desert Strike, Where in Time is Carmen Sandiego, and Two Crude Dudes. We also have Game Gear reviews, Axe Battler, Crystal Warrior, Fantasy Zone, Devilish, the Most Outrageous Photo Contest. Other departments are Overheard at Sega, Mailbox, Fast Takes, Famous Gamers with Boys to Men, Around the Corner, Visions and Views. Right here we have a rumors column. You can tell the 16-bit wars are in full swing. Right here with this article says, The Ballad of the Jenny and the Sneeze. Sega's friendly competition with Nintendo continues. Retailers reported the Genesis outselling the SNES at Christmas time, sometimes by margins of 3 or 4 to 1. Must have something to do with Jenny's technology and its larger game library. About 4 times as many games as the SNES. But you already knew that. Okay, we have a full-page ad for the Sega Genesis pinball game, Dragon Fury. We have a 2-page spread for Steel Empire. Battle never-before-seen deadly warships. Enter the future that might have been. Here we have the mailbox section. What's pretty cool about Sega Visions is they actually, instead of having a dedicated cheat code section, they sprinkle hints throughout the issue. Right here it says, Batman, 99 Batarangs. In level 3, the museum, ride the second elevator to the top, defeat Axel, then jump up and grab Batarang. Get back on the elevator and ride it down. When you come back up, there will be another Batarang. Repeat until you have 99. As far as the letters, there's not much that's interesting here other than this one right here that says, Dear Sega Visions, I recently played your hologram video game Time Traveler and later heard that you were coming out with a home version of the game. Is this true? And the reply says, Not that we know of. Don't rule it out though. You never know what those guys in the back room are cooking up. If you've never seen this Sega arcade game Time Traveler, it has a really bizarre holographic display. It's definitely worth tracking down and playing if you've never seen one. Here we have a 2-page ad for Desert Strike. It says, Clean up the debris the storm left behind. Here's our Kid Chameleon main feature. If you've ever played Kid Chameleon, it's a pretty fun game. It's pretty cool, but it just seems too overwhelming to try to beat it. I think there's something like over 100 levels. Definitely has a really early Sega Genesis vibe. Here we've got levels mapped out. Here's our Sonic review. And it's not really a review as much as it is sort of like a preview slash strategy guide. They don't really have anything critically to say about the game. Here's a review for Alicia Dragoon, and it's more of a traditional review. Sports Talk Baseball. Quackshot starring Donald Duck. That's actually a pretty fun game. The Sega Genesis has probably the best selection of Disney games in its library over any other game system in history. So if you're a diehard Disney fan, I would definitely recommend picking up a Genesis and all of the Disney titles for it. Here's our Sonic the Hedgehog comic strip. Really early Sonic 1 style animation and enemies. Sonic 2 hadn't yet premiered. Here's our day in the life of a video game. Sega, a visit to Sega. This is probably the most interesting article in the issue. This first paragraph here reads, "Welcome to Sega. Many readers have written and asked us what it's really like inside the fastest growing video game company in the world. Do programmers really wear propeller beanies and consume diet soda by the tanker? Do they have a direct line to Domino's for midnight orders of pineapple and anchovy pizza? Do the sales and marketing guys walk around with cellular phones and call each other babe? Well, maybe. Let's drop in on Sega's U.S. headquarters in Redwood City, California, and check it out. Sega of America is located in 3 separate buildings, just a few hundred yards from busy Highway 101, the main drag between San Francisco and San Jose. One of these buildings is where you'll find all of the product development, the guys who are responsible for all the great games that Sega produces to run on the Genesis, Master System, and Game Gear. This multimedia studio is where you'll find artists, musicians, programmers, and game designers. 2 additional buildings contain the company's business and corporate offices. Sales, marketing, financing, and consumer services all live there. Even though you'll see more suits and spreadsheets per square yard in those buildings, the 2 groups of people have one very important thing in common: their excitement about the video game industry. Both of them want to make you happy you own a Sega game system." Lots of behind the scenes snapshots that are really interesting to see. Looks like early on in this period it was probably a pretty fun working environment. Here's a picture of Tom Kalinske. It was probably not too long after he took over as I think Chief Executive Officer. Here's the game counselors. Game counselors, it's a lousy job, but somebody has to do it. Sega's game counselors know every last detail of every game that runs on Sega systems. They can tell you where and how to find those hidden Easter eggs, or how to get past the big boss on level 3. Game counselors spend their entire working day playing all the latest Sega games and advising customers who need help getting through a game. If you think this sounds a little like being an ice cream taster at a dairy plant, you're right. But even ice cream tasters have to take a break from ice cream every now and again. So after a hard day trying out all the new games and answering customer inquiries, these guys like to relax by heading down to the local arcade. Here we have a 2-page spread for Bulls versus Lakers NBA playoffs. Here's an early preview of the Sega CD. Soon nothing will even come close to your Genesis. What exactly is the Sega CD? The Sega CD is a CD drive that connects to a Sega Genesis to bring you a whole new dimension of gaming experience. Not only will you be able to play all of your Genesis carts, but you will be able to also play all of the games soon to be available on the new CD-ROM format. Games that will include CD quality stereo sound, motion video, and an enormous capacity for graphics and animation. Here we have a Game Gear review for Axe Battler, The Legend of Golden Axe, and also Crystal Warriors. Here's a Game Gear review for Fantasy Zone. Another ad for Flying Edge game publisher, but this time showcasing exclusively Game Gear titles. It's funny, they don't actually give on their reviews any kind of rating, 1 to 4 stars or thumbs up like that. It's more of a preview than it is a review or an advertisement, really. Here's the creators of Toe Jam and Earl, and check out that guy's really rad Toe Jam and Earl sweatshirt or t-shirt, it looks like. Toe Jam and Earl is an outrageous Genesis game which features video game characters with true personalities. The two guys who created these ultimate alien funk lords are Mark Vorzanger, age 29, and Greg Johnson, age 32. Sega Visions obtained an exclusive interview with Mark and Greg, who told us all about their best-selling video game and their work on the upcoming sequel. To me, it's kind of hilarious that these guys are even younger than I am, now. Here we have what looks like a strategy guide for Chuck Rock. Here's a review for Desert Strike and a review for Carmen Sandiego. We have Two Crude Dudes, Devilish. And this section is called Fast Takes. Beginning this issue, we will publish ratings along with our game reviews. Published ratings are based on the ongoing testing and evaluation conducted by our reviewers and game counselors. In the interest of objectivity, we will not be rating Sega's own games. Naturally, we think Sega's games are all great, but we don't have to tell you that. Games are rated on a 100-point scale in 5 categories: graphics, sound and music, play controls, and gameplay, depth and challenge, and overall fun. Unlike the ratings published in other magazines, you won't find any embarrassingly low ratings here. By the time a Sega game has obtained Sega's seal of quality, it has already exceeded certain minimum standards. Here we got, let's see, Fighting Master. Looks like its rating floats around 80%. About the same for Marble Madness. The Terminator game, the overall fun is probably the most important metric I see here, and they only give that about a 68%. I'll flip through this section pretty quickly. My best advice is to get an EverDrive flash cart and play through all these games and form your own opinion. Here's an index of authorized repair centers for the Sega Genesis or Sega Master System. They have a pretty cool illustration down here with some geeky clerk working at a Genesis repair center, and maybe, I guess, he pulled a golden axe out of this Sega Genesis. Right here it says, "No wonder it wouldn't work. We found this buried in the coprocessor." Here we have a page advertising the Sega Game Gear photo contest. You played your Game Gear where? Enter the Sega Game Gear Most Outrageous Photo Contest and see yourself in a future issue. Send us a photo of yourself playing your Game Gear in the most exotic, outrageous, abnormal place you can think of. If it blows us away, you'll see yourself in an upcoming issue of Sega Visions. We'll accept snapshots, 35mm slides, an instant photo, a color photo, or black and white, just about anything but videotapes. But we won't accept anything boring, so don't send us a photo of yourself in your backyard unless you happen to live on the moon. Picture yourself playing Sega Game Gear atop the Eiffel Tower while hang gliding on stage with Metallica. The more creatively crazier you are, without risking life, limb, or your Game Gear system, the better. Here we have an ad for the Sega Genesis port of Paperboy, and also a couple other Tengen releases like Pit Fighter, RBI 3, or Dragon Fury. This is probably the coolest article in the magazine right here. Famous gamers rapping with Sean Slim Stockman of Boyz II Men. And they briefly discuss the history of Boyz II Men, and they shoehorn in a little bit of Sega Genesis talk here. When Michael Bivins of Belle Biv DeVoe discovered the members of Boyz II Men, nobody knew this quartet's debut album, Cooley High Harmony, would go platinum, or that they would win a Grammy Award, an American Music Award, and a Soul Train Award all in 1 year. Sega Visions met up with 19-year-old group member Sean Stockman just before Boyz II Men began traveling with Hammer as the opening act for the sold-out Too Legit to Quit national tour. Sean is an avid Sega game player. In his free time, he plays his Genesis system at home and takes his Game Gear system with him when the group is on tour. Here's an ad for Rolling Thunder by Namco. Here's a list of upcoming titles that are going to be released here in April 92, May 92, June 92. More secrets sprinkled throughout the issue. We have an ad for Arch Rivals. And this is a ad where you can actually purchase games direct from Sega of America. Here's an ad for Sega branded sports games. Here's an ad for upcoming officially licensed peripherals for the Sega Genesis. War of Rome 2. And this is a preview of the next issue of Sega Visions. Are you up to this? Here's what's coming from Sega later this year. Sonic the Hedgehog 2. Look for more extensive coverage in the next issue of Sega Visions. Here we have an ad for the Genesis game Salmon King. Here's an ad where you get a $20 cash rebate when you purchase a Sega Game Gear. Supersonic savings. And now we have the back page. Grab the clutch and feel the power. Power Clutch SG. The supersonic control system for turbo power propulsion. Anyway, guys, that's my quick overview and read through of Sega Visions May and June 1992. Have a good one.